Hey guys, Jay here, and today I want to talk a little bit about some uniques that I think are indirectly buffed in the 3.25 patch that we have just seen. There's a lot of things to go through, and there's a lot of things that are actually not that obvious. This video is by no means going to list every single one of the items that is going to benefit. It's just some of the items that I think are actually stand out, at least for me, right? In the couple of builds that I am planning on and predicting to be relevant in a league start meta. And let's get to it. I think this is going to be helpful. First thing first, I want to mention the Plume of Pursuit, Bone Circlet, and Maroline's Fallacy. These two items has always been together in some sort of a niche build where the Plume of Pursuit make you guarantee a crit on the final repeat of a spell. This is achievable by using Spell Echo, right? So the first cast is the first repeat, second cast is the second and final repeat. And that second cast is guaranteed to crit. This combo with the Maroline's Fallacy gives a lot of crit multi. And just that simple mechanic, and also normally it is used with the Wind of Fate, right? That is an item, the Wind of Fate is an item, is a staff that gives you benefit for critting, but also cap your crit at 50%. So normally those are the items that go together. But I think the staff is not going to be relevant in this particular setup that I'm thinking of, because this is going to be an Ignite setup. Why do I go for Ignite on a crit build? In case you didn't know, Perfect Agony, the keystone that nobody have used before, got a huge rework slash buff. Right now, whatever the number of crit multi, not right now actually, in the next patch, whatever number of your crit multiplier is going to be your dot multiplier, your damage over time multiplier. Unless you don't know, stacking crit multi is way easier than dot multi. Way easier. And yeah, it does come with a downside of if you do not crit, you cannot inflict an ailment. However, it's already taken care of by the Plume of Pursuit. So this is going to be a very easy way to actually get a lot of damage for Ignite builds. Because obviously, right, you can just see here. And then on other sources, you can obviously try to stack a lot of crit multi. That will act as your damage over time multiplier. One thing that I want to note, 99.99% that it will work this way from the wording that we have seen. The crit multi will take over whatever the amount of dot multi that you have. So for example, if you have some extra sources of damage over time multiplier from anywhere, right, that will completely be negated. So if, for example, you have 200% damage over time multiplier from other sources, and you have, say, 400% crit multi, your total dot multiplier, if you take Perfect Agony, is going to be 400%. Not 400 plus 200. It is going to replace, not add it to, not an addition into the amount of dot multi that you already have. So keep in mind, any source of dot multi is then useless. Just crit multi, just stack a bunch of crit multi. This is going to be only viable for spells though. If it is viable for melee, it will be broken. Because, yeah, melee is heavily buffed in terms of damage this league already. The things that I am thinking about for this particular setup, probably I will use something like Hex Blast, or any like typical, even Fireball, maybe Ice Spear. Ice Spear does have some extra crit multi, which can be good. You know, things that is typical for Ignite, whatever skill you want to do. Arc can also be very good for clearing. Just those kind of skill. It cannot be used with channeling, because obviously channeling cannot be linked to Spell Echo, and you cannot then repeat, right? So this is the first thing. Second, Hateforge. I think this item is going to be so much better in this league. It's not going to be on league start, but because obviously it's a kind of rare item. But with the rework to Rage, the Rage generation is actually much higher at the moment, right? Not at the moment. My English is much higher next league. It's easier to generate more rage. And so, if you can figure out a way, I'm not sure yet, but if you can figure out a way, somehow, probably you will have a much smoother build with the Hateforge. Especially with like Val Growth Slam, because it is the only slam. Val Slam is the only Val skill that can be buffed with all the war cries. War cries and melee both get significantly buffed, in my opinion, at least for slam build, right? War cry is nerfed for general use, but for slam specifically, there's a lot of buffs for war cry basically. So, Hateforge. There might be some very impressive video later this week with Hateforge. So if you see this is very cheap, maybe get one. Right? Next one, Jack the Axe. This will be more friendly toward the league start scenario. The special thing here on this axe is the Thirst for Blood skill. Also, it does have some more damage multiplier to bleeding. Bleeding is going to be pretty big this league, I think. They have direct buff and then the buff to the bleed ascendancy. A lot of changes, a lot of buffs to melee, to bleed. So Jack the Axe here, the Thirst for Blood skill, if you don't know what it does, it basically gives you 20% more bleeding damage for 10% of your life reserve. 10% of life reserve. That is very nice. So it doesn't do anything to your mana. You can still keep your mana pool for reserving whatever. 10% of life is nothing. It gives you also 400, I think 400 or maybe 200, I think 400 life regen per second per bleeding enemies nearby. Up to 5 enemies. So while mapping, normally you will have 2000 flat life regen. This is very strong early on. This has always and probably will still be a 1 chaos item. Probably this league, maybe a good roll can be like 5, 10, 20 chaos something on a league start, but I don't think it is going to be anything special, right? Next one. This one is kind of obvious, but I still want to mention because this is one of my favorite items. Varunastra, well, it is the weapon, the one-handed weapon that is counted as all kind of one-handed melee weapon types. The reason it is going to be nice for this league is mentioned by GGG himself, Mark from GGG himself. Gladiator's weapon mastery thing. I forgot the name, but anyway, you know what it is if you have watched the content reveal or the patch note. This weapon will benefit from every single benefit that you can get from that note, and it's insane. It is 20% more crit, 30% more damage on low life, more accuracy, more area of effect, I believe. There's a lot of things. Basically all and every single... Oh, 20% instant leech as well. Every single weapon types that is one-handed got a buff in there, in that note, and this weapon gets everything. The downside of this weapon is kind of obvious as well. It is critical strike chance, is very low, it's 5% base, and also it is rather low attack speed, but in the current melee stage, I think this league melee, we will not be having a lot of reliant on fast attack speed, I think. So slower hitting skill, slower hitting weapons can have a place in the meta, just with the changes that they are doing to the melee. And also, this weapon is very versatile. You can use any skill with a claw, with a... For example, just an idea that I randomly thought of. This weapon can be used as a claw, and you can use, or a dagger, and you can use a Val Lightning Strike with Hateforge before, right? Benefit from everything, all these stats. And also, if you want to fix the crit chance, the crit base buff overall on dagger, scepter, wands, Basically, a lot of melee weapons got buff in their base critical strike chance, except for swords, axe, and maces. So, with the changes to the base crit chance of a lot of weapons, the crit base ascendancy point from Slayer is probably going to be cheap in the form of Forbidden Flesh and Flame Jewel, so you can probably have it for a pretty cheap price. That I'm not sure, but it's probably going to be that, right? Anyway, next weapon. This is, if you have see like the couple of first video on this channel, I made, I think, my second and third video on this weapon. This is the highest flat damage weapon in the game. This league, it have like quadruple kind of buffs to it. The first thing is obviously melee buff, right? So naturally, a melee weapon benefit from it. Second thing, physical weapon quality buff. This weapon is the undisputed best buffed weapon in the most buffed weapon in the game, because the way that the quality works before, 20% quality basically is an additional 20% increased physical damage added to the 600%. It's nothing, right? You already have 600. You have 20 more, so that is like what, less than 5% of the damage. Now it is 20% more, and if you use like the Beastcraft to corrupt it to 30% quality, this is a 30% quality, 30% multiplier to the damage of this weapon. It is absolutely insane. It is still a very slow weapon, yes, but with all the buff for the damage, I think Resolute Technique build this league is going to be a-okay. Second, Shockwave is the, normally if you use this weapon for a melee build, it better be like Cyclone Shockwave, because it's kind of obvious, right? So Shockwave is also buffed along with melee. Huge. You probably deals like what, 7-8 times more damage, I think is the number, with Cyclone Shockwave, with the Shockwave, with this weapon, compared to the exact same setup from this league and before. So this is going to be a good build, right? Shockwave, Cyclone with Marohi. Also, Marohi with the increase / more damage on the flat physical damage of the weapon. Battle Mage with this weapon also heavily benefit from it. In fact, Battle Mage, I think, is also a hidden thing that is getting a lot of benefit from the changes to the quality of the weapons. And probably this is the best used weapon for Battle Mage, hands down, right? So I love this weapon. I think this time it is going to be not really tier 0 worthy like it is. It is a tier 0 drop, by the way. I don't understand why they don't move it down, but it is the tier 0 drop. This time it will move to closer to the power of the actual tier 0 item should have, right? Like Mage Blood. Imagine this shit is as rare as the fucking Mage Blood, right? Now it should be stronger. And yeah, that is everything. Everything I want to share in this video today. So like and subscribe if you think this is helpful. My kid is nagging me. That is why I kind of stutter a little bit. But anyway, until next time, peace. There will be a lot more content before the league start, and also obviously when the league start, there will be more content as well. So stay tuned for that. Peace.